Take a moment to consider the passing of 50 years. Many of you may not have been alive that long. 50 years is half a century, 600 months if you're counting, 18,262 days. One of Central Illinois' most evil secrets has now been safe for 50 years. Whoever killed Carol Rofstad in December of 1975 went on to live another lifetime, while friends and family were left to wonder.
I just automatically liked her right from the beginning. Yeah. She was very likable, very loving, very caring, and fun. So she was easy to get along with.
So what do you think Carol would be doing today?
Probably mom. With her kids and involved in their lives. Probably any grandkids now, or just close to her family, I would think.
My theory is that, there were 3 people involved in Carol's actual attack that caused her death.
It's 2025 now. The prime suspect has just died. One of his alleged accomplices has been gone for decades. But there is one man left standing. A man who once told the authorities he'd tell them everything in exchange for immunity. That offer, that would bring comfort and closure to so many, was refused and has never been revisited.
At one point, the police went to Tennessee because his longtime girlfriend and later wife said that he came home on the night of the crime full of blood and sweat. They went down to Tennessee. They talked to him. He agreed to take a polygraph test. He failed the test miserably, and so he was afraid that he was going to get charged with the crime, and so he wanted to cut a deal. And he said, "You give me immunity from prosecution, I'll tell you everything you want to know." The then state's attorney said, "No, we're not giving him immunity." And so he knew exactly what happened. He had blood and sweat on him, so he was there. And so he knew that then, and he knows that now. He could solve the case in 20 minutes. But he is not the kind of dude that's going to tell anything at all out of the goodness of his heart or from a bad conscience. The only way that he would do that is if he was absolutely afraid that he was going to take a fall on this murder if he didn't tell the truth about the person that actually did the killing and orchestrated the killing.
From Genuine Human Productions, this is Carol's Last Christmas. Chapter 17. The Last Man Standing.
My blood is 100 proof. Let God have mercy on you. 'Cause I'm wrong, you best go. I'm a criminal, so despicable. Tell me I'm thinkable. And then it feels good to be a criminal, so despicable. Tell me I'm thinkable. And then it feels good.
We have chosen to omit names or use sound effects in this production because the individuals discussed have not been formally arrested, charged, or accused of wrongdoing in the death of Carol Rofstad. The Normal Police Department declined to participate in this podcast.
If we were going to make a list of critical errors, one assigned to the police and the other assigned to the then prosecutor, they would both be connected with suspect number 2.
So who is suspect number 2? If you've been listening all along, you know him best by this sound effect. He grew up in Danville, Illinois, a rural town that once had thriving factories as well. It's about 85 miles from the Twin Cities of Bloomington and Normal. He went to a private Catholic school, then to community college, and on to Illinois State. He appears to have graduated in 1972, going on to a career in insurance at State Farm, to this day one of the area's biggest employers. So in 1975, when Carol was attacked, where was he? And what was he doing? Our team talked to more than a dozen former Normal police officers. One, who has since passed away, connected some crucial dots.
The late Marty Fogler is the person who really put us on to suspect number 2. He knew his father, who was owning the construction business in the Twin Cities. And Marty Fogler, before he became a policeman in Normal, he worked at the Red Lion as a bouncer. And he was the one person that associated number 1 with. They were troublemakers. They got thrown out. They harassed women. They scared women, and so on. And he told me that without question, in the 2 days between the time that Carol was attacked and the time that she passed away, that he had taken off and left town after shaving his shoulder-length hair and so on. So I don't believe in coincidences of any kind, much less that kind.
Fogler pointed out proximity.
He lived directly next door to the sorority house where Carol lived and where she got killed. And he was a cocaine dealer, and he lived with a bunch of people in the Stope house. And so, by association, he also knew suspect number 3, who was deceased, and the three of them all knew each other from the dope house right next door to the crime scene. So the information that we gathered was that number 3 had confessed to a friend of his that he, in fact, was the person who wielded the length of wood that bludgeoned Carol to death.
After hearing about our podcast, this man, John Becker, sought us out to share information about a confession. Becker has since died.
That girl was in the paper last week. He's was the one who did that. I said, He said, yeah, he is. I said, how would you know that, Tom? Tom said, I was there. He said, I seen it happen. He said, I didn't help. I didn't hit that girl, but I seen it happen, he says. It was a board or a limb, he says, or a piece of tree. He says, I didn't get that close, he says, because I didn't want to hit that girl. Yeah. He says, now don't tell nobody. Why would I tell anybody, Tom?
The way that I piece this together, you have the lookout man, you have the guy with the motive that solicited the crime, and he had the maniac who actually wielded the club. The lookout from his house next door, and probably was able to give the signal that Carol was approaching the sorority house, and he was there watching for the light because he had arranged the whole thing.
And according to John Becker and his friend Tom, who claimed to have seen the attack, suspect 3 beat Carol with the piece of wood.
He said, I didn't help. I didn't hit that girl, but I seen it happen, he says.
Presented with little or no interruption, Carol's Last Christmas has been an expensive endeavor. If you appreciate our investigation, please consider making a donation.
Visit patreon.com/Carol's Last Christmas.
My name is Jim Merrick. I'm a detective with the Police Department at Normal. With me is Detective Ryan Ritter.
The only official police recording we've been able to obtain is one from 1995.
We're here to talk to Carol Rofstad's family in regards to the homicide case in Normal in 1975. Making everybody aware the conversation is being audio recorded.
We listened to that conversation early on in episode 5 of this podcast.
Now, I need to ask you something now.
That's the voice of Carol's mom, the late Lillian Rofstad.
Let's see, how shall I say that? There was a girl, I think, that lived next door that was sort of a mental person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, was she married to one of those two people?
She was eventually married to someone that is named as one of many people that they, over the course of years, suspected of being involved, of having knowledge of your daughter's death.
But it wouldn't stand up in court. You know, her testimony, right?
The people that dealt with that at the time did not feel that, without being too specific, she was not a witness to anything. She was not a witness to your daughter's death.
Right.
She had suspicions
right.
of her husband that
right.
he had committed this act.
Right.
Mere suspicion alone, even if she was the best witness in all of Earth, would not necessarily mean someone was going to be charged.
Mere suspicion alone? A month before their taped meeting with Carol's family in 2008, police re-interviewed a former lieutenant on the force who remembered,
Blank lived next door to the sorority house at the time of the homicide. Blank, his wife, suspected he was involved in the Rofstad homicide.
In fact, what she told police and her own family over and over never changed.
A couple of days after the crime, she contacted the police, as we know, and said, I live with this guy and I'm pretty sure he killed her because he was out that night and he came home with blood all over his face and clothes. And then he shaves his head and he takes off for Farmer City, yeah.
But Normal police dismiss this woman as having psychological problems.
There was absolutely no question that what she had said about was valid and that nobody would listen to her.
The official record goes on.
Lieutenant Blank and Sergeant Blank went to interview the man in Tennessee in 1996 or 97.
When they drove up in their unmarked car and got out, he's the one that said, oh, you heard about the girl.
A polygraph was done by the local FBI office.
If this is the guy, he took a lie box and failed it.
Huh.
But then he said, if you want to talk to me, you got to give me immunity. And they wouldn't do it, and that was the end of it. That sounds to me like a guy who knows frickin' well who did it, but it wasn't him. That's just how it sounds to me.
I know they looked at that person, and we're looking at that person, just like we're looking at other names involved in the case. And I know where he lives. Yeah. What's his name? Do you need to know, or are you asking if you should say? I think that we should probably not say.
Probably not say.
The only thing that matters is they blew it off, thinking that she was not credible. My experience with eccentric people is that they usually make the most credible witnesses because they have no impure motives, you know?
The thing that is important is that if someone is a suspect or a person of interest or a witness, I want to talk to them if given the opportunity, and they can say no. Absolutely.
In the 4 years since our work began on this case, we've heard that word no quite often. Recently, though, co-producer Ali Daskalopoulos got in touch again with someone we've wanted so badly to talk to. A woman who for a brief time was the sister-in-law of suspect number 2.
So how did you find me?
George Seibel, I don't know if you remember speaking to him.
Yes, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, so he and I are kind of investigative partners.
Okay.
I kind of stumbled upon her case when I was getting my master's degree. I had interviewed George initially for just my master's class, and I couldn't let it go.
I just went online again to read about her. Mm-hmm. It's just a horrible, horrible, heartbreaking story.
And though 50 years have passed, there are some parts of her sister's past that always seemed confusing and downright suspicious.
In my opinion, that's why he whisked my sister out of Bloomington or Normal. That's why they left so abruptly. Let me tell you about my sister, Jenny.
Yeah.
So you hear from me probably what I told George, but my sister, Jenny, we have 11 children had 11 children in our family.
Oh, wow.
And Jenny and I were in the middle. We were very, very close when we were young. Gosh, this is so emotional all of a sudden.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
She was born April 11 in 53, and I was born April 10 in 54. So we were almost, we grew up thinking we were twins.
Yeah.
We dressed alike. We were extremely close. We did everything together until we were just best friends. Mm-hmm. Until she went off to college at ISU, and my sister Lisa, who was a year older than she was, went to ISU first, and Jenny kind of followed in her footsteps. Jenny was a very shy, easily dominated child. She was between Lisa and me, and we were very strong personalities, and I think she just kind of disappeared mm-hmm. because we were two strong people on the side of her. So she was very shy. She was the kindest, sweetest, most honest, giving person you could ever want to meet. Mm-hmm. I do remember Jenny brought home for Christmas a couple times, and I remember meeting him, and I remember not being comfortable around him. Mm-hmm. And I remember their relationship always seemed strained whenever I was around them. We have a history in our family of childhood sexual abuse of an uncle by marriage. Mm-hmm. There were 6 of us that were abused, mm-hmm. sexually abused as children. Jenny was one of them, and possibly the worst, and never came out of it. Mm-hmm. Like the rest of us who kind of got into therapy and really worked on becoming whole people again. Jenny somehow was beaten down from it and and depression came into her life in her college years. And I think probably with it was present, and he didn't help because he was an alcoholic and probably on drugs. I don't know, mm-hmm. To be sure. But so it was just a dark picture for her. And I think she just wanted to be loved. So he was the first person who paid attention to her, and she married him. When my mother died and then he divorced her, she sank into a deeper depression, and she never really could fight that off. All her life, she struggled to become healthy. She'd have up and down periods. Right when the situation in Bloomington happened, I must have been living in Indiana at the time. And I would get calls from her periodically that she was depressed and she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to live. She became suicidal. And at one point, she called me and after this murder happened and said, I'm very, very scared. Has been involved in a murder, and I'm very, very scared. And I've gone to the police 3 or 4 times. I don't remember, but it was not once. Mm-hmm. And she says, and nobody believes me. Just nobody believes me. But she did tell me how scared she was of him, and that he came home, that he had blood all over his clothes, and that he was very sweaty. And I think it was that evening, possibly, that he said, we've got to pack up and get out of here. I remember the cutting of his hair. Yes, yeah. I remember that specifically. She told me that.
We know that Jenny talked to the police several times, and she talked to her sisters. There was also a friend at work.
This is one piece of information I wanted to be sure and tell you. She worked at State Farm as her career, all her career life, until they fired her because of her mental issues.
Okay.
I don't know if she took off too much work and she was because of depression, but she was fired. And there was one woman from State Farm. I believe she worked at State Farm with Jenny. All I know is her name was Harriet. And after Jenny left, she said Harriet and I stayed in close touch, and they would have lunch periodically or go out for supper. And she told me that she told Harriet about this as well.
Okay.
I have no idea if Harriet might be alive or if you could find her name. And I've asked my sisters if anybody remembered her last name. The other very interesting piece of information that I told you my sister Carol had, when George called me after our conversation, I immediately called my sister Carol, my sister Mary Ann, and I called them and I said, I just got this bizarre phone call. And it's somebody who really believes that Jenny was telling the truth when she went to the police, that she did go to the police and she was telling the truth. And Carol said, I need to tell you something. She said, way back then, or I don't remember when she gave Jenny this piece, or when Jenny gave Carol this piece of paper. Carol said to me, Jenny gave me a piece of paper and asked me to please keep it. And Carol put it in a jewelry box or somewhere at home, and she didn't open it for a while. She just, put it in there and then went about her business. And when she opened up that piece of paper, on it, Jenny had written down the name of the police officer that she had talked to. That every time she went to the police, she talked to this same police officer. And I don't know who that is, but Carol still has that piece of paper.
So what do we make of Jenny, who tried so hard to do the right thing? As many times as she told her story, it never wavered.
She would have these memories. She would have memories of things of her childhood with Mom or with that horrible uncle. And we didn't know if they were imagined or real. I don't want to say mental illness because I don't know if it was more than depression. When she talked about this, we were all asking the same question. Was it imagined or real?
Is Harriet still alive? And could she tell us more?
She might have been a supervisor of hers. Well, I don't know.
One thing's for certain. The last man standing knows something.
Maybe you could prey on his conscience before he dies to tell the truth about for his own soul. This is a chance for you to once and for all. I mean, the chances that the police, if he told you his story, you don't have to go to the police, do you?
And what he could tell us might do more than just solve a crime.
If anything about Jenny's knowledge of this would give some sort of closure to this horrible tragedy, it would give meaning to her life, you know what I mean? And the fact that she tried so desperately.
Right.
And then was just once again invalidated, unworthy. What you know doesn't mean anything. How frustrating that must have been for her. And to know that this murderer or partner in the crime was still free must have just eaten away at her.
Carol's Last Christmas is a genuine human production, reported from interviews with friends, family, and experts, and based on official records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. Lead investigator George Seibel, Chicago Police Department, retired. Investigator and co-producer Alexandra Daskalopoulos. Investigator, writer, and narrator Demetria Kaladimos. Voiceover recreation Justin Holder. Audio mastering and consultation by Paul Gibson. Music provided rights-free by Artlist, Blue Dot Sessions, Motion Array, and Storyblocks. Original music by Verlin Thompson. Graphics by Orlando Rodriguez and Thalia Kaladimos. Website and promotional material, Thalia Kaladimos and Jim Champus. Our theme song is Criminal by Binge Heard, featuring Katrina Stone, courtesy of Artlist. Carol's Last Christmas is distributed by Radio Misfits. Our sincere thanks to the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press for pre-publication review, and to those who knew and loved Carol and generously shared their stories.